Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and now their first understanding with this Trump situation, is that the legal system we have in America is a disaster. It's corrupt. It's subhuman. Jeez, that's relatively mean. Stop banging. You're scaring my kitty. The legal system is ridiculous. It's now a wholly owned subsidiary of politicians and people who have their own. I think my neighbor's banging their hanging up a picture or something. Who have their own interests first. They are not public servants. They don't serve the public in any meaningful capacity. If they happen to occasionally serve the public while they're advancing their own interests, then it's a coincidence more than an intention. And this was proven to me in my prosecution. We now see it loud and clear in Trump's prosecution. If you're telling me the state of New York has no better crime to prosecute than the president paying $100,000 of hush money, quote unquote, to that woman, then you're crazy. Because if you know New York City, there's a lot of crime here to prosecute. And I think that it's fairly obvious that in our great country of New York, it's fairly obvious that this is a political assassination. And I think that I know who sponsored the legal campaign against me. And again, I'm a tough person. I fear nothing, and I could stand up against the most vicious of tyrants. When I was a child, learning defiance and learning how to stand up for yourself was very important to me, and I would never ever back down, no matter what. Even in communist China, if they had me against the wall to recant or they'll shoot me, I'd say shoot me. That's just the kind of person I've become, and there's no changing it. I'm 40 years old. It doesn't mean I can't learn. It doesn't mean that I can't grow. It doesn't mean that I don't make mistakes. But if I believe in something, I'm going to stand for it. And I think that's something that's pretty important to me. I think it was Martin Luther King who said something to the effect of, "If you won't stand for something, you'll lie down for anything," or something like that. And ultimately, I think that the corrupt political culture and criminal justice culture is really just something that I think that judges and prosecutors kind of use as a tool to shape society how they see fit, and especially to advance their own interest. And it's really frustrating. Anyway, let's get back to work. And again, I don't cry for me. I cry for all the other people that have no resources, that have no ability to defend themselves. And you shouldn't cry for Trump, because Trump is famous and Trump can defend himself. What you should be upset about is the guy that's being trampled, who has no voice, who has no rights, who has no ability to defend himself or herself. That's the issue. Yeah, if you can stay below the radar of these cretins, you're in good shape. But, the problem is our country is going down the drain. And I sound like an old man, but I do think our country's going down the drain at this rate. It's kind of disappearing before our eyes. We have a transgender shooting tragedy, and the White House is upset about the shooter, the murderer, being trans, saying that trans people are going through a tough thing. In Albania, you spit on the ground when you hear something you don't like, because it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. So I'm tempted to spit on the ground, right? And it's like, what country, do we have that we want, where, we're focusing on the shooter instead of, who planned this terrible crime, instead of, you know, that's very scary. And you have this like weird left-wing cult of climate change, which, you know, I'm sort of a pseudoscientist or, you know, researcher, call me what you will. I believe very strongly in science. But, you know, this culture of taking some parts of science and expanding them past science's purview is wrong. And remember, I'm pro-vaccine. But again, you know, we can't force people to take a vaccine product. We can't lie about a vaccine product. You know, these are complicated products that, you know, are very nuanced, and most people can't fully understand the nuances of immunology and vaccination, and we shouldn't be lying to anybody to convince them of something that isn't there. Again, I'm a pro-vaccine person, but I also, you know, understand it extremely well. And, you know, I think the way the government handled the rollout of the vaccine was pretty abysmal. So if you guys want to find somebody to, we'll talk about climate change in a second. If you guys want to find somebody to support that has a lot of these similar viewpoints, I would encourage you to look at my friend Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for president. People like Vivek and people like Mark Andreessen and people like Peter Thiel, they're all our country's got, in my opinion. People like Palmer Luckey, you know, I think that they're the last protectors of the America that we knew. And I think that, you know, it's sort of a shame that, you know, Vivek is V-I-V-E-K. You can look for Vivek 2020. V-I-V-E-K, Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek 2024. So no, I think everybody should be free to choose if they want to take a medical product or not. It's their choice. You know, Vivek is, the one thing about Vivek is he's honest. You know, he tells it like it is, and it's really, you know, he'll tell you, like, you know, he makes mistakes. He'll tell you he's not right about everything, and he wants to have the open debate as opposed to the just talking points that are poll tested and stuff like that. Like, I think that's something really refreshing. He's a very, very smart guy, right? He's a brilliant young man. I think he's even a couple years younger than me. Yeah, no, he's made mistakes with some of his corporate actions too. But, you know, Axovant wasn't great, but, you know, I think that, you know, he would make a really great president, and having an Indian American as a president would be a huge milestone. We have Indian CEO of Microsoft. We have an Indian CEO of Google. We have an Indian CEO of Adobe, Indian CEO of IBM. Indians have done very well in America. They're the real American dream. They come to America and work their ass off. They come to America and study their ass off. They come to America and they don't commit crimes, by the way. In America, in prison, where I can give you firsthand, I've been to 3 prisons, 2,000 or 3,000 people each. I maybe met one Indian person, and he was wrongfully accused. So, you know, these are people that have jumped into America and have fulfilled their American dream. They come from a dirt poor place. India's average GDP per capita is like $2,000. Come to America, and they're the highest earners in our country. I met a lot of Albanians in prison. And Albania, put it this way, Albania, and I'm Albanian, so I can say this. Albania has 3 million people, okay? India has 1.5 billion people. 3 million Albanians in Albania, 1.5 billion Indians in India. And I met 10 times as many Albanians in American prison than Indians. So, you know, just think about it. You know, it's a culture that prizes education, a culture that prizes respect, family ties, you know, things like that. And Vivek, You know, is I'm not saying he's perfect. You know, I'm not perfect. He's not perfect, but you know, he's a good dude, and you know, I hope he makes it really far in politics. Whether it's this term, next term, you know, he becomes a senator or whatever. Unlikely case, he becomes a president. You know, I'm all for it, and we don't have minorities in Congress, right? We don't have younger people in Congress. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. Everybody in Congress is 100 years old. You know, you got people in Congress where they talk about cryptocurrency or AI. They're sitting there thinking, what the fuck is going on? I don't even know what the hell this is. You know, we need people that look like Americans, innovators, people who are programmers, people who are, you know, smart people, not just people who know how to yell and scream and attract attention like Lauren Boebert or an MTG. And again, I'm friends with some of these people, but they're actors. They're not actual people like you and me that actually have to go to work and do stuff. You know, I'm glad that they're passionate about what they say, but I also think that they, you know, they're not regular people. Career politicians. You know, normal people don't want to be politicians. That's a fantastic point, Ram. And I think that, you know, that's where Vivek is doing a true public service. This is why I like wealthier business people as candidates for the public, because they don't have anything to gain from the experience. You know, you have $1 billion, you don't need to be a politician. Trust me, when I talk to people with $1 billion, the last thing in the world they want to do is run for office, because it looks like the biggest pain in the ass. It's a huge inconvenience. You can't go skiing in Gstaad. You can't, you know, go on your you know, you've got votes and campaigns and, you know, all that stuff to do. It gets in the way of all your fun. Now, some people are able to do both, but in general, there's no benefit. There's no monetary incentive to being the president. If you're a billionaire, no. If you're worth nothing, sure, you get to write books and stuff like that. But you know, you don't get money. You don't get more money being a billionaire. You have to stop doing all your business work. You have to go divest all your, you know, conflicts of interest. You know, thank you, Zach, by the way, for supporting the stream. You can get some power, but the power doesn't help you. Look at Trump. I mean, how did Trump help himself in any way, or anybody else for that matter? You know, it's very much, you know, a social service, and that's why, like, people like John McCain, he was in the war, right? The guy got shot down. This is not a guy that is trying to grift, right? I think that, you know, Vivek, you could argue that a lot of these political guys, they're self-centered, they're egotistical, they're a little megalomania. Look at Trump. You know, they believe that they should be in charge because they have a huge ego. Okay, that kind of comes with the territory, with anyone. But they certainly don't have an incentive to do it. You know, I think that that's, you know, really critical. And, you know, I hope you guys think about that. I know a lot of people here, I'm preaching to the choir, but I think that, you know, we have to save our country. And again, I think when I was a kid, I remember all the old people would say the same thing, right? Our country's going down the tubes. But, you know, I think we're in danger of approaching that. And thankfully, I think cooler heads will prevail. But, you know, we have to speak. You know, the amount of people that I've met, from the biggest rock bands and rappers in the world to the biggest business people in the world, who have said, gee, Martin, it's so nice to meet you. I always really wanted to say that I support you, but I was afraid. I was a big fan. I even have a poster of Trashy on my wall. And I'd shake their hands and say, thanks a lot, your support means a lot to me. But the culture of fear that permeates America, that Vivek has talked about, that, you know, shut up, kitty. That culture of fear where people are afraid to say they support capitalism, to say that they support, you know, innovation, to say that they support business. You know, when I was in jail, I'll never forget this until the day I die. When I was in jail, there was this. I was going to a visit. I just got there. It was a couple weeks in, and there's this black woman. You know, who's the guard who guards like the visit center. She's like administrating it, and she was like, as I go to my visit, she goes, "Shkreli, come here." I was like, "Oh fuck." I walk over. So I was like, yes? She's like, listen. I'm doing my best sassy black woman impression. She's like, listen. I heard about what you did. And I was like, yeah. She sort of had like a Megan Thee Stallion type of look and voice. And I was like, yeah. And she was like, get your money. This ain't no communist country. I support you. Now have a good visit. And I was like, yes, queen. And it was really funny because, again, you know, there's a lot of people out there. This is New York, the city of dreams. The city where an immigrant's son or daughter can, you know, become a billionaire or anything like that. Whatever their dreams are, it doesn't have to be about money. You could become the best chef in the world. You can become the best violinist at Carnegie Hall, right? This is New York where anything can happen. Even somebody from the Marcy Projects can become a billionaire rapper entrepreneur. And so anyway, or a Long Island, you know, kid can end up owning the Mets. You know, there's that we want to preserve, then we have to sort of kick out people like AOC. We have to kick out people like Elizabeth Warren, who, you know, quite frankly, are our enemies. You know, and I hate to put it in that kind of, you know, light, but these people would gladly, if they could, arrest every billionaire, arrest every prominent person, put them in prison, and unless they conform to the ideals and the interests that others, that they believe that we should have. For example, I talked about the trans shooter a second ago, but there are endless examples. Like, for example, regulation. They want to regulate everything. There's nothing that shouldn't be under government purview, including AI, which is a brand new technology that people are already talking about. You know, AI should be done. AOC should just not be reelected. That, in my opinion, you know, that's you know, she's not the right you know, person to represent the most dynamic city in the world, New York. Yeah, New Homestead would be cool. The folks at Praxis are trying to set up a new utopian city. I do think AI will eventually be a political leader, probably around 2050 or 2060. I think a major Western country will be run by an artificial intelligence. Speaking of which, my artificial intelligence program, I call BookGen, is writing a book. It's called I wrote this program to sort of think about the way a writer would write a book, and it's writing it. The book, it came up with all of this by itself. The book is called Beyond the Veil, and it's about ghosts, I guess, and paranormal stuff. And so it has this full outline, characters, all this stuff, and now it wrote 10 chapter summaries, and now it's writing the pages. So it's on page, it just finished page 1.